So to anyone who doesn't know, Peterbot actually came from console and he's playing on KBM on PC now. So the improvement that he's made, astounding. I don't think we've ever seen anyone make this kind of jump from being a console player to being someone who is literally one of the best players in his region this quickly. So we're going to go through one of his games today, work out how he's fragging out so much, and if there's anything that he does that specifically sets him apart from other PC players. Of course, everyone knows about the beef, so of course he's going to land here. He's going to be very comfortable here, and you have to say, he's probably been one of the MVPs of the spawn fights this season with Macwood, so it seems obvious that he's going to land here. One of the things you will notice about him is that his aim is unbelievable, and I do just have to stress, sometimes natural talent is just something that some of these guys have. Peterbot has extremely, unbelievably good natural talent. That's fair to say. To be this good at aiming on KBM after playing on console is unbelievable. Another thing you'll notice about him is that he's very patient while also being noted as one of the more aggressive players in the region. So he is extremely aggressive when he looks for kills, but when he actually carries out the fight, he makes sure he's very, very safe when he takes his fight. Very similar to the way that Taysom plays his fights. You see, he's always making sure he's controlling the right space, controlling the right builds at the right time, but no time there did he take a 50-50 despite having the health advantage most likely, and also despite having the loot advantage. So he had two advantages there, and he didn't 50-50 with them. He still looked to play really good angles, like you see from Taysom. This fight here is a perfect encapsulation of what I mean about playing aggressive and looking for a fight, but doing it safely. Straight away, holding a right-hand peek on a guy, gets the shot in, looks to piece him up, gets the shot, easy finish. So he played that safely, he engaged safely, but he was aggressive in doing it. So again, you see him playing this really nice and slowly. He has the mats to be able to just control space around this fight and make it really awkward for this guy to make any sort of movement, both in the horizontal and vertical directions. The way this guy feels now is trapped, and you're going to watch him take a 50-50 at some point here, I'm going to guess. And still, you see how slowly he's playing this, despite the fact that you'd think of him as an aggressive player. So backing out, making sure he gets his heels up. Nice shot, and then really good aim to finish that fight off. A little bit more risk involved on that one, but definitely goes to show. I think he probably just got frustrated in the end, but he played that nice and slow to begin with. So zone has gone far southeast, and these are the kinds of zones that you're seeing all the time, people making memes about all the time this season, because they seem to keep on cropping up. But it's going to be good to see where he goes to from Craggy Cliffs, having to rotate all the way down, potentially to Caddy. Another thing to note as well, of course, you can get parasites at Craggy on the little cabin up the top of the hill. So by getting these, he gives himself a nice speed boost through mid-game. And then, of course, if he can hold on to it for late game, it's easy to make those rotations through late game with the speed boost and the jump boost. So I think in solos, one important thing to note is that it's really, really important to clear congestion early if you've got an extreme pulling zone. So for example here, we have a zone that pulls all the way down to Caddy. So it's really important for Peterbot to clear this congestion that's going to happen here in Corny. And by getting a car, he can basically just shoot his way straight through that. If he was on foot, what's going to happen is the longer it takes to make this rotation, the more movement that's going to happen around him, the more chance to take damage, the more shield he's going to burn through, and the more mats he's going to burn through as well. So by having a car in this instance, and by having a car in solos in general, by prioritizing that, you can basically ensure that you can get out of those really awkward congested scenarios in first and second zones, which are the most influential in setting yourself up into good areas. But as you can see here, he gets his car taken. However, you'll see his rotations aren't that difficult as a result, again, because the main issue is clearing the congestion here. As you can see, there are now a bunch of people dead or spread out. That's either because they were forced to fight or forced to disengage because they had to engage with each other via tags or something like that. So by getting out and by clearing that congestion early, he is able to forget about that entirely as he hits a really nice snipe. So I think the biggest takeaway from this in terms of your mid-game rotations is to put emphasis on trying to clear that congestion early so that when it comes down to making your rotation to third and second, it becomes easier and easier each time. Another thing to note as well, what I call POI congestion. Trying to get out of POIs is really important, or at least staying to the outer edges is really important, because people are just generally attracted to them. You got to think, what's on a POI that attracts people to it? Materials that you can refarm, and the thought that you might find some extra loot. So, by staying away from POIs, you allow yourself that peace of mind that you're not going to be surrounded by people and the next rotations are going to be tough. For example, here you see a lot of congestion at the top left here of this zone where people weren't able to get through here simply because they were held up in the middle of retail. However, when you've got mobility like the cow, like a car, sometimes you can completely forget about that. And again, it goes to show how important having some form of mobility for mid-game is really important for solos to avoid that kind of congestion and avoid those kinds of fights. He is very central third here, so we can basically skip it through to the half-half rotation he has to make because he's just going to be sitting in a box up until this point. And we go more solo Cash Cup Classic King, just staying active, making sure that he's always moving, always seeing what's potentially his to spray, and always staying active. As I've said so many times on this channel, if you want to be a tier 1 player, you have to have the confidence to always be looking. However, here he probably got a little bit overzealous, trying to be doing a little bit too much. You've got to walk the balance. Don't be too over-aggressive, but always be looking because you're good enough to look. Alright, now I do have to say this, I think the cow is one of the best additions to the game in a long time. Reason being, I think it's balanced. Yes, it is quite a lot like the ballers, but you get shot out of them instantly. Therefore, if you really want to grief anyone using a cow, if you think it's overpowered, it's really easy to do so. You shoot them once, they're out of it, and their rotation's stopped. It also allows for those really low mat, high IQ rotations where we can potentially make something work with low mats, moving into first moving, second moving, or third moving without having to go for a risky refresh. One thing to notice here is that he tries to move to control high ground or a high place so that he can see what's going on below him so that he can look for a pad to recycle. You can see here his plan is to clearly recycle a pad, and what he's going to do is move up his ramp here, look around, find someone who's going to be padded. You can see here he sprays this guy to see if this guy's going to use his pad. When that doesn't happen, when that doesn't break down, he starts to look below him, and then again, because you can see there he is so high, or he can see what's in front of him really easily, and he gets that pad, finds it really easily. So if you feel like you really need to recycle a pad to half-half if you don't pull it, put an emphasis on getting yourself up so you've got higher sight lines and it's easy to see pads below you. Particularly in solos, you really don't want to use your pad to get to half-half. Ideally, you save it for first moving if you have one. So this is a really good little trick just to make sure that you're always going into late game holding that pad so that you get that first moving as free as possible. And by free, I'm meaning less mat spent. So you can see him here, he's trying to put some pressure down on this guy. Now, I don't know if he's trying to make this guy use his pad or just trying to get him lobby focused to maybe get a refresh of some sort. Either rule makes sense. This guy does end up using his pad. I think him looking for this, he was being very cautious. You can see in the end, he doesn't end up using the pad that little Parza guy uses. And I think it's out of caution. I really like this. I really like the play to not full send a pad that he doesn't know much about. He ends up using his own, but immediately looks for a refresh here. And that's the kind of play that I really like as well. The confidence to get in and find that refresh. Honestly, you're going to win that fight so often when you're jumping in without people knowing that it's worthwhile giving it a go. Gets a rotation entirely free. Now, one thing I also want to point out about the cow, you see him there, get out manually. When you get out manually, your timer is lower the next time that you want to use your cow. So by getting out earlier, he gives himself the opportunity to use that cow earlier into the next zone. Playing nice and slowly, and you can see here the utility of the cow. Again, jumps out so that he has the opportunity to use it again himself. He's got quite far into zone, he boxes up, he cancels it manually, and by cancelling it manually, he then allows himself to use it quickly whenever he wants to next time. By boxing up here, his cooldown time is slower. Uses his cow again, and I'm sure he's going to either manually get out or accidentally get shot out. So manually gets himself out, and then again, his cooldown time is low, and I really like that. I really like that. You can see how long he has rotated for. I'm basically only around 400 mats spent. That has been a very easy rotation for him as he finds a nice refresh. But the fact that he's using his brain here in these scenarios so obviously is really cool to see. Again, another manual disconnect and straight into it. Boxes up. It's very reminiscent for me of the crash pad meta where essentially as Mr. Savage gets boxed up. It's very reminiscent of the crash pad meta where we saw people crash pad, box, crash pad, box, crash pad, box, and essentially get all of moving zones on extremely minimal mats. The cow can be used in the same vein. For how far he's rotated, he still isn't really even into his wood, having done such a fantastic job doing the cow box up strategy. Now, another thing that does have to be said about him is that he has really good fragging potential. Of course, you can see here, he does have the tendency to miss a couple of shots, but that is what you'd expect from someone who is a little bit more new to KBM than other players. However, as we get into the final zones here, you can see some of these shots that he's hitting and some of these moments that he has are very, very non-replicable. What is replicable about this is the way that he uses the cow in such a smart manner to be consistent across all of his games. He won this Cash Cup so comfortably, and I can't help but believe it's because he knows how to utilize the cow properly, and then it comes down to him winning these gunfights in these constrained scenarios. It's now a 1v1. He has a bunch of mats from getting frags on low ground, and it's just about now winning his ones. But the cool thing about what he's been doing up until this point is the cowing and the boxing up and how he uses that to its absolute maximum potential. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.